Okay, so let's just refresh what we just talked about now. So the domain for our cosecant here is negative infinity to negative 1, round bracket 1 to infinity. Okay? And then my range here would be from, again, quadrants 1 and quadrants 4. So in that case, negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Make sure it's round square brackets. Okay? For secant, it's going to be similar, same thing. 1 to infinity. And then for the range here being quadrants 1 and 2. So in that case, from 0 to pi. And then for cotangent, what we have here is negative infinity to infinity because it's order numbers. And my range here is going to be quadrants 1 and 2. So in that case, 0 to pi. Round bracket because the endpoints are asymptotes. Okay? So let's go through some examples now. Okay, we're going to go through a couple questions and then that's it. Okay, so example number 1. We're asked to evaluate what our cosecant of 2 is. Okay, so first thing you remember, 2 is positive, so that means this angle must be in quadrants, in the positive quadrant. In that case, it's quadrant 1 for our cosine. So in that case, our cosecant, sorry. And then what we have here is, we can write this as cosecant of theta, which is the angle, is equal to 2. Okay, so cosecant is somewhat difficult to find, so in that case, do the reciprocal. So that means sine of theta must equal 1/2. Because quadrant 1 and quadrant 2 is the same thing for sine and our cosecant. In that case, it's going to be pi over 6. So that's going to be pi over 6 for the angle. Okay, similar question, our cosecant of negative 1. Okay, it's negative, so that means it's the negative quadrant for our cosecant. In that case, it's going to be in quadrant 4. So in that case, rewrite it as cosecant of theta is equal to negative 1. Okay, cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so sine of the same thing. Because the reciprocal of 1, negative 1 is still negative 1. So in that case, sine of theta is equal to negative 1. That means my angle is going to be in negative pi over 2. Okay, always double check if it's falling in the right places. Okay, next example, arc secant of negative root 2. Okay, negative root 2 is negative. That means it's in quadrant 2 for secant, and the negative quadrant in secant is in quadrant number 2. So that means secant of theta is equal to negative 2. Okay, so that means cosine of 1 over negative square root of 2. That's why you have root 2 over 2, negative. That means it's in quadrant 2. That means it's going to be 45 degree angle. That means it's going to be 3 pi over 4. Okay, now the example, arc secant of 1. Okay, it's positive, that's in quadrant 1. And that means you can write this as secant of theta is equal to 1. Okay, secant is the same thing as cosine, the reciprocal of cosine. In that case, we flip this upside down. We have cosine of 1. We get, when is cosine equal to 1? Between 0 and pi over 2. 0 and pi, in this case, we will have 0. Okay, that the angle is 0. Now, next one, this is the one I mentioned about cotangent where it's kind of difficult to find. So this is a quick example, okay? So here we go. So our cotangent of negative root 3, okay? Our cotangent is negative in quadrant 2. So keep that in mind, quadrant 2, okay? That means you have cotangent of theta is equal to root 3, okay? That's just rewriting it, okay? Now, here comes the part where it's kind of confusing. So the reciprocal of cotangent is tangent, but tangent is defined in quadrants 1 and quadrants 4. Therefore, you have to find the corresponding angle in tan and plus pi to it. So in that case, tan of theta is equal to negative 1 over root 3. Okay? So that means, because for arctan for this angle, it's going to be it's going to be the 30 degree angle in quadrant 4. So you add pi to it, you get 5 pi over 6. Okay? Keep that in mind. Okay? Watch this part a couple times. Hopefully it makes sense. Now, next one is arcotangent of 1. Okay, it's positive. And then for tangent, it's also in the same quadrant. It's also positive in quadrant 1. So in that case, you don't have to worry. You only have to worry when it's the ratios in the negatives for arcotangent. So make sure you make that switch from quadrant 4 to quadrant 2 for arcotangent. So now we have in quadrant 1. So the cotangent of theta is equal to 1. That's a rewrite. That means, because it's in quadrant 1, keep that in mind, tangent is also positive in quadrant 1. So that means we have find the corresponding angle. It's a 45 degree angle. It's going to be pi over 4. So if it's a positive angle, just go as is. But if it's a negative, is going to get, you can rewrite it as arctangent and then get the answer. But the difficulty issue here is because the negative quadrant for arctangent is quadrant 4, and the negative ratio for arctangent is in quadrant 2. So yeah, make sure you go from here to here. So let me just draw a quick diagram for you to consider. Okay. So over here, so this is cotangent. No, this is tangent. Sorry, and this is arctangent. Okay. So because whatever you have here for tan, you have to move it up here for cotangent. So move plus distance of, this distance is pi, and that's what you get. Okay? So if it's negative, find the cotangent angle, find the tan angle, and then plus pi to it. Okay, so shift it to quadrant 2. Okay, three more examples here. This is where you kind of have to use some of the math that we talked about earlier. Okay? And this one we're going to have to use we have to draw some triangles. Okay, so this is example 23, exercise 23 from one of your handouts. The question says, cotangent of arc cosine of negative root 3 over 3. Okay, so for these examples, this is not a good ratio. Okay, these ratios you do not know on top of your head because these are not 30, 60, 90 or 45, 45, 90 triangles. So that means you will have to draw your triangle to make this work. Okay, so over here, we know root 3 over 3, this is a ratio. Okay, so that means it's the adjacent side on the hypotenuse. So we can just write that, draw that up here. We're going to find the missing angle, missing leg here. So in that case, I found this is negative because arc cosine, the hypotenuse can never be negative. So it's always the leg that's negative. So that for this one here, you just have to do 3 squared minus negative root 3 squared. And then what you get will be your answer. In that case, it's going to be root 6. Okay? Because this angle here, theta is in quadrant number 2. Okay? So that means, so we can rewrite this as, this is my reference angle. So cotangent of this angle, in this case, we don't know what the angle is, but that's what we use. That angle is going to be, cotangent is adjacent on hypotenuse, adjacent on opposite. So adjacent, negative root 3, on adjacent, on opposite. In that case, we have negative root 3 over root 6, simplified to be negative root 1/2. Negative root 1/2 is also equal to negative root 2 over 2. Okay? So we don't have to find the angle. You just have to find the ratio, and that's all you have to do. Okay? So question number 30, cosecant of arctan of negative 2. Okay, remember, this is in quadrant number 4. So this theta is in quadrant 4. And then because of this, the way it is, just one number, that just means you can fill out the denominator as 1. So that means my arctan, that means my sine side, my numerator is going to be negative. So in that case, we have negative 2 over 1. Okay, to find the hypotenuse, we have negative 2 squared plus 1 squared, which is 4 plus 1, which is 5. So that means my angle, my leg here is going to equal root 5. Okay, so now, cosecant of theta, this angle here, is, again, cosecant is hypotenuse on opposite. In that case, adjacent on, no, hypotenuse on opposite. In that case, all we have is root 5 over negative root 2, which gives me negative root 5 over 2. Okay, so remember, for tangent, it's always the opposite that's negative. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so make sure you don't mess it up. Okay, now next part here is 28. Cosecant of arc sine of root 2 over 3. Okay, this is sine. In this case, this theta, because it's positive, it's in quadrant 1. So that means, I should write that. Theta is in quadrant 1. Okay, so that means it's in quadrant 1, but we have to find the missing leg. This one is the the adjacent side. So in case opposite on hypotenuse is root 2 over 3, and then my angle is the angle we're trying to use is over here. So in that case, we're going to find the adjacent side. So again, 3 squared minus root 2 is equal to root 2 squared is equal to root 7. So in that case, it's going to be equal to 7. So in that case, my leg side is going to be root 7. So that means my angle here is theta. So cosine of theta is, cosine is adjacent on hypotenuse. So adjacent on hypotenuse, we get root 7 over 3. And that's all. That's all we have to do. Okay? So for these type of questions where you don't have a good leg ratio, then you have to draw your triangles and make it work. Okay? So make sure you use this idea here, this part here. Our cosine is negative, so it's in quadrant 2. Tan is negative, that's in quadrant 4. Sine is positive, that's in quadrant 1. So use those stuff we talked about earlier in these type of questions. Okay, so now you just have to do practice and turn in by 9 p.m. Okay, that's all. See ya.